not gonna lie, I was planning on having a little bit of a lazy day today. I have a bunch of laundry on my bedroom floor, and probably I need to unload the dishwasher and like scrub my shower. But I was feeling very lazy. Like I'm gonna self care. I'm gonna relax. And I was taking my shower, and my brain just would not stop. So here I am. I'm like, I'll get it out of my brain, and then I can go back to being lazy. So that's what's going on here, and it's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so what I was thinking about is how, the shift from identifying like abusive actions to abusive ways of thinking. Because one thing I discovered in my relationship with my loved abusive ex was that he's a very smart, insightful person. I mean, oh, like he would articulate things, and I feel like I'm blah blah, and then he'll say a thing, and the vocabulary is just superb. He's articulate. It's amazing. Um, and so he would absorb like ideas I was telling him about things. Like one of our very early on, I don't want to say arguments, but one of the things early on I was like, "Hey, you can't do this thing. Like it's not okay. It's abusive. You cannot keep me awake just because you're anxious and you want to talk about shit. Like and you're upset. Like I'm exhausted." So what had happened was I was a stay-home mom for like years, and then I meet him, and I'm like, oh shit, no, I can't be dating and a stay-at-home mom. Like this is not, can't do this. So I got a job, and didn't realize that I didn't know how to work anymore. So I'm freaking out about my job. I was in this like horrible stage of anxiety like all the time, and I'm just like trying to keep it together, and I'm like my son's primary caregiver, and I'm just like honestly I look back on it, I'm like I don't know how I did it. Like things are not good. So with so I would, he would keep me up because he was, really upset about a thing, and like, oh, I need you to understand, you've done this thing wrong, and you need to apologize, and I have feelings, and I'd be like, I can't, like, I need to sleep. I need to go to sleep. It is 3 a.m. I'm not gonna be able to function at where I'm already bad at my job. Like, I don't need extra help because I didn't get any sleep. So anyway, it took a couple of weeks, but I finally get through to him, like, hey, this is abusive. Don't do this thing. So he stops. But so on the one hand, like, woo, wow, kudos for recognizing that you're doing a thing that is like super not okay. But on the other hand, he went to other behaviors, it didn't, you know, going down a checklist of, look, this person lies, this person cheats, this blah, blah, blah. Like that doesn't, I mean, it helps you recognize like, oh, I'm in maybe like a not great situation, but what is really underlying those things are patterns of thinking. So one of the gifts of that relationship was that I really started noticing patterns of thinking. So like from the last video, I talked about how I was noticing patterns in common with multiple people in my life. And so, oh man, I hope I remember these because obviously I was in the shower, I didn't write it down. Okay. So, empathy is usually really big on people's lists. Like, oh, does this person have empathy for someone else? But what I've discovered is if you're dealing with somebody with a history of trauma, like they may have empathy generally. They may generally have empathy and be like completely empathetic. But when they hit a certain, like when they're flooded, when they're in fight or flight or freeze or fawn, or for me, hysterical laughter sometimes, when they're in that like fight or flight mode, like that empathy goes out the window. So empathy is kind of a hard one because it does indicate, like if someone doesn't have empathy ever, like you go, oh, okay, I'm dealing with, a psychopath or sociopath or whatever the correct official designation diagnosis is. But if they have empathy most of the time, but then like you get into it and then suddenly like everybody's flooded and your feelings are taken over, and then they don't have empathy. So empathy for me was kind of like, helpful, but not necessarily like it. So there were some other things that I was like, oh, okay, I'm recognizing this. One is the absolute, like, their emotions always take priority. Doesn't matter what it is, their emotional state is always more important. So even if you're like, oh no, I'm, me too. Like, I'm also like, yours goes second. Theirs are more important. So there was the stage in our relationship where he's cheating on me, he's going back and forth with this girl, he's physically assaulting me, and he still wants to talk about some shit that happened at the beginning. And it's like, boo boo. I understand you have feelings about this, but like the fact that you are not even able to like empathize with me here. I was like, what are you doing? I was just watching it like, you're smart, you're insightful. Why can't you see this? I thought if I just explained it well enough, because that's what I like to do. I like to explain, and a lot of times you go, oh yeah, I get this explanation. Okay, now it makes sense. And I just could not, like, he just was so stuck on, like, and like, I don't want to minimize his emotional experience, but like, truly rather trivial things. Like, they were a big deal to him because he had a lot of anxiety and felt like I was going to leave him and, meet somebody else. And like, I was just like spending time with him. So like, absolutely his emotional state, like, totally valid. But like, is it more important when you're like actively like, oh, my AC, hold up. What was I doing that was so egregious that his feelings about it were more important than him emotionally cheating on me, physically cheating on me, attacking me to the point where at one point I like wrenched my back and he had ripped headphones out of my ears and broke them, and then in fact had to like, they're here somewhere. He had to buy me new ones. I still haven't actually opened this. I guess he tried. He put like a lot of effort into doing research and buying me like nice ones to replace the ones he broke. My $10 Amazon headphones. Part of the way there. Like, obviously he's trying. You just not. Anyway, so what was it that was so much more important than like all of that? And it was early on in our relationship. My son's father and I, we were living together at the time. We were still technically married. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had already spent all of my money trying to take care of my kid. I had like cashed in my 401k. There was a bed bug situation. He made us live with bed bugs for like 7 months. And I finally was like, we can't, no. And I thought like, oh, I can either, I was making my list of assets to like get divorced, and I thought, you know what, wait a minute, what if I just, instead of using this to get divorced, what if I just like really tried hard to make this work? So I cashed in my 401k, and I like took care of the bed bugs, and put my son in a little mother's morning program. And like I was so stuck. I was trying to figure out my way out. So anyway, by the time I meet the new guy, I'm dealing with the old abusive relationship, and he's very much like, definitely like rescuer tendencies. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes there's a habit of doing that, a pattern of doing that with people when they want to feel like they're valuable and worth keeping. So I guess he figured like, here I am, I'm in distress, I'm in this terrible situation, whatever. Anyway, so I'm living with my child's father. We are still technically married in a house that we both own. And at this point, it's been like 5 years since we've been at all anything. And he was really upset. He was there. I obviously didn't think it was a problem. But my son's father was in the bathroom with me while I was in the shower, like not looking in the shower. We weren't having any kind of salacious conversation. We were just talking about logistics. And, you know, my ex was like, he just was terrified that I was like cheating on him with my husband. Like, this is why we don't get into messy situations, people. It's like, but I can't crack on him because he was a huge reason why I was able to move out of the place that I was in and become self-sufficient and get my job and, even like the apartment that I'm in, like, okay, so it's not fancy, but it's mine. It's homey. So anyway, very messy situation. And so I'm sitting there like, I don't see the problem is like, I was in the shower, he's over there, curtains closed, like no one can see me. Um, and so it was just like he needed me to understand that like that was wrong and that was bad boundaries and da 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 like all this stuff. Like he was so stuck on it. And like sometimes I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it. Or oh no, I wouldn't be okay if your ex was in there. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but my ex is different. Like there was a lot happening. Um, instead of looking at himself and going, ooh, this person doesn't have boundaries that work for me. I should step away, you know, instead of trying to control me or what I think, right? He had to just keep going at it. Like I wasn't agreeing with them, and instead of going, oh, okay, this means this isn't the right person for me. I was like, no, you need to change. So anyway, that was the event that was more important. His emotions around this were more important than physically assaulting me, cheating on me, punching a hole in my door, my concerns about fighting in front of my child or fighting so that our neighbors could hear or, any of that. So like the number one thing that I'm noticing with those four people I was mentioning is that their feelings are always more important, always, every single time. And then so the other pieces are that being right is the most important thing at all. And once they feel right, they feel justified to do some crazy ass shit. And then because they're doing crazy ass shit, they engage in image management because they don't want other people to think they're bad people. Like, no, I was right. I'm justified. I'm right. I'm justified. So I'm not bad. And then, but ultimately all of this stuff is a result of trying to control what you think and how you act and how you feel. He could have just said, hey, I get that you don't understand or you can't relate or you don't agree that your child's father being in the bathroom with you while you're in the shower is like not okay. But I need you to recognize that that's something that's important to me and I don't feel secure when you do that. And so can you please just agree that that's like a boundary you're willing to respect? Will you not be in a situation that could be construed as being intimate? And like, okay, what a brand new world that is. It's not controlling. It's not trying to control what I think. It's not trying to control how I feel. It's not, it's not based on like trying to make me see that I'm wrong. It's, oh, you know what? This is where I'm coming from and this is what I need from you. And this is why. And if you can't do that, okay. And then be able to walk away. This is why it's really hard when people with codependency, when we depend on each other to meet our own emotional needs that we need to be meeting for ourselves. When people with codependency get together, because they're like, oh, I'm in love and I want this person and I need them. I need what they give me. I need them on this like core level. And so bad boundaries and like it's a hot ass mess. So, it's so hard because again, this is, the abuse community, I really think does itself a disservice by going, abuse are bad, Um, one thing that I learned about from Philip Zimbardo, who he's kind of iffy with his Stanford experiment, but he wrote a book that talked about vectors of, situational factors that can lead to unsafe, problematic, abusive, whatever behavior. Before my son's father went back to work from paternity leave, when he was there and like, I mean, he wasn't doing like the bulk of anything, but he brought me food. He take my child so I could take a shower and like maybe have an hour break or something. Once he left though, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a great mom. I was on top of the world. I was going into work. I was on point. And then he leaves and I'm suddenly like, I had this moment. It was so like I'm still like I think back on it and I just go, oh my God, like that to me was like, okay, that's the bellwethers. So, I'm something this is dangerous. My son he had a diaper rash and I was trying to change his diaper and I'm trying to take care of him. And he's crying. He's okay, of course he's crying. He's in so much pain. Could you imagine like all this shit's happening to you? You have no idea what's going on. People are doing things at you. Like, oh, my sweet baby. And I just screamed, right? That night I want to say he had his first nightmare. Or that might not have been the one. But anyway, I screamed. I just it was like I didn't realize I had anxiety at all. And then suddenly I was in a situation where I could not control my environment to make sure my anxiety was controlled. Like suddenly I was in a situation where I had to like suddenly I could feel it rising and rising and I just like and I was like, oh my God. Oh, maybe I'm not a great, maybe this is less about me being a good person and more about me having support or me having help or me not doing everything by myself. And also, I eventually ended up going into, I was basically forced into it. I didn't, I was just like, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I can't deal with this, like I can't. And I eventually got into counseling and eventually got into seeing a psychiatrist and got medication, and which actually I'm on now, or not on now because I'm like in remission, like being in a healing environment away from stressors, like boy. But recognizing that there are vectors, right, of situational factors that can lead anyone to engage in abusive behaviors. And I think this is so important, particularly for me and my ex, and even my ex-husband. Like I was not expecting some of the stuff he did. Like he was very financially controlling. He canceled mine and our child's health insurance, but didn't tell me. And then I was having heart pains because like all this stuff was going on. And I get to the hospital and they're like, you don't have health insurance. I was like, guess I do. My son's on that policy. Like, absolutely not. This is not a thing. And it turned out it was canceled because he didn't want to spend the money. Was my ex sitting there being malicious, trying to hurt me? No, he went, in his mind, we justify sometimes. He was like, I'll take that gamble. They're probably fine. There are millions of people without insurance and they're okay. Like we don't need it. Like that was the same shit he would say about our son's Christmas. Like he doesn't need Christmas. There are kids that don't have Christmas. And it's just like, who are you? Like you know, um, so anyway, if people who have trauma backgrounds and like a history of child abuse and are codependent and have bad boundaries, and maybe even mental health issues, and then here we are from this like deep wounding, trying to connect with another person, give them our love, be loved back, be finally feel what it's like to be unconditionally loved, and you know, feel like we are home and that we have family that's forever. Like that drove me before I met my now ex-husband. I mean, that was like the driving. I was just like I kept trying to make my friends my family, and they weren't showing up for me the way I was showing up for them. Like I was showing up for them like 105,000%, and they're like, yeah, that's cool, okay. And, I was like, no, I'm trying to give you my soul. I'm giving you my soul here. Like I'm trying to show you so much love. Like why don't you see what I'm doing? And the reason why is because they have family. Their friends aren't their family. Their friends are their friends. I did not like learning that lesson at all. That was not a fun lesson for me. So it's kind of when we have the codependency and the bad boundaries, and also we're so intensely critical, as a maladaptive coping mechanism. Yesterday's video. And we're negative towards ourselves, and then like we see this ray of hope in this other person, and we want to hold on so tight. We finally feel happy, we finally feel like we've got a person, we finally feel like we've got a place, and it's like it's magic, it's amazing. um and then suddenly shit starts to go wrong and you're like, oh no, like please just stop please just be different, like please stop doing this, like where's that, where's the original, and I do want to differentiate this from people who are very intentionally controlling. I kind of mentally group abusers into unintentional and intentional abusers, and I feel like we got a strong grasp on the intentional people. They're you can, like, they're very manipulative. Like, all those checklists, like, bam, that's them. What I'm more interested in, me personally, are, the unintentional abusers. And then when we start doing unsafe things, do we recognize that that is what we are doing? Um, Sometimes I know for me, sometimes it takes time. It takes time for me to like really process. Now it did not take me any time to process around my son because my guiding principle was like, I'm not going to be my dad. I am not going to do to my child what happened to me. And so I was like, when shit started going down, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, what can I do? What are my options? I was real upfront with people. Like, this is what's happening. And I need help. Like, no, I'm drowning. Like, what are you doing that's working? Because I seriously, I went from feeling so confident to like everything's falling apart. I have no control over anything. you know, Add on top of it, my son's father is a hoarder, and he doesn't want to admit it. But like the house right now, like it's so bad. Um, well, I always have them over here to do things. Here is here is homey. Here is not fancy, but it's nice and it's homey and there's space, to be a family. And hoarders just don't see how they control things by controlling the space. And so anyway, yeah, so would I say that these people didn't have empathy for me? Absolutely not. But were their feelings still more important? Were they still like, the primacy of rightness? Not only am I right, but I need you to accept reality. Like, if you don't agree with me, there's something wrong with you. And then when that doesn't happen, because hey, we're all our own individual people with our own individual experiences, right? Making our own individual assessments. So when that doesn't happen, and then they're mad and they feel justified, I feel like you can tell the most about a person when they feel like they're right versus when they're wrong. Like, how do people act when they feel justified? I feel like that's super telling. So I have a former friend who is, she's now turned into a stalker. She's probably watching this video, which she shouldn't. Don't do this to yourself. But anyway, so she's coming from this mind, like she's very much flipped on me. She used to feel like I'm gonna make like it's amazing and like totally like here for me and like all this stuff. And now that's completely changed. She feels very justified in what she's doing. I had to take the subreddit private. I had to send a cease and desist letter. And I'm still getting texts from this person, and they're aggressive and they're hostile and they're, quite frankly, they don't make sense to me. I don't, but it's still very much like you're wrong. And instead of going, you know what, this person, for whatever reason, doesn't want to interact with me. That's fine. Like we've had a falling out. We're not friends anymore. Like, no, I'm right. I'm justified in what I'm doing. I gotta control what's going on. And then the very interesting thing is there's again that concept of image management, how people, it's really interesting to see how people are in private versus how people are in public, and that image management is so important to them. So anyway, I do remember a point at which my abusive ex, he accused me of what was it? He said something like you pay. He was like, you just tell the therapist what they want to hear. You just tell the psychiatrist what he wants to hear. And I remember thinking like, bitch, I'm paying like hundreds of dollars. I'm not paying hundreds of dollars to have somebody just tell me some shit. Like, I've got friends, you know what I mean? Like, if I just want a person to like agree with me, I'm sure that's an easy thing to do. No, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing here. But when you get these accusations, right, that don't make sense to you, because in general, I tend to overshare. I tend to like, that's more my challenge. My challenge isn't necessarily like projecting an image of whatever. Mine is more like, I'm messy and I'm being messy in public, and wow, I wish I weren't doing that as much. But I do have a strong value for authenticity, so it's like trying to find that balance. But anyway, whenever you get like an accusation where you're like, that's not right. That doesn't resonate for me. That tells you about what they're thinking. And honestly, I really feel like this is the core of projection. They have a way of thinking. The way we think about things determines how we process information and then the conclusions we draw. So when you get to somebody who has a conclusion that they've drawn and you're like, what? No, this isn't, I don't even see where this is coming from. That is really good information about how they're thinking. So, he is going into therapists. He is going to psychiatrist. In fact, he went and tracked down my psychiatrist and started seeing him, like, which is kind of a no. Like, he thought no one would care or no one would mind. The same guy who's like, no, you shouldn't be in the bath. You shouldn't have your ex-husband in the bathroom with you. Like, that's not okay while you're in the shower. Is like totally fine with going to my psychiatrist, right? Like, again, so when you see stuff like this, you're like, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't make sense, their feelings are more important. So like his feelings about getting a certain kind of psychiatric help are more important. It could have been that he wanted to go to my like subconsciously wanted to go to my psychiatrist so that if my psychiatrist says, yeah, Inva's wrong, Inva's the problem, then he can feel like really secure about it. So maybe there's some image management going on his end. Like, that possibility exists because obviously that's the way he thinks. So maybe. But that's not information for me. That's information for him. Like, if he chooses to take that opportunity to go, oh, wow, this is a thing that I'm doing and maybe I should not. We are all on our own individual journeys for, growth and learning to be better people. I'm not going to lie. I have faith in him. Yes, some things have gone down. But obviously I wouldn't love him if I didn't think he was an amazing, incredible person. I just think I think he, like me, we had terrible childhoods, and then we tried to be together. And then I was in the middle of, already an abusive situation. Another unintentional person. And he's like, you're my happiness. Like, why won't you stop doing what you're doing? Be different. Agree with me. Like, I'm trying to explain this to you. And I'm like, no, but you're keeping me awake. Like, it was just this whole cycle, and we tried so hard. And then, add this other person in there and then add his, like, from my perspective, it felt like he was trying to feed his ego need for attention. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been there. I remember my early 20s, like, I just wanted people to think I was amazing and fabulous, like, just adore me. Like, that's all I want. Just think I'm amazing and adore me. And like, or in his case, maybe some of that, but also maybe some of like sexual, appreciation and interest. Or, the person he left me for was, like 12 years younger than him and a beauty queen, like that is satisfying, from an ego identity sense. Anyway, this is all very, very complicated and we're all trying to work our way through it. And so, did I love going through these experiences? Do I like exactly what's going on now? No, but I'm dealing with it. But the gift, because I can never turn off my brain. My brain's always going, is that now, okay, now I'm recognizing, like, and this is how we know if we are being unsafe. This is how we know if other people are being unsafe. But I had to check if I write it down. Okay, so their feelings are more important. Their belief that being right is more important. Their being right justifies whatever they decide to do. Their need to control how you think or how you feel or your perception of reality. And as a result of all of this, their image management, because they don't want to feel like a bad person, but I'm right. I'm not a bad person. I'm right. So I'm justified in controlling how people see me, controlling how I, am in the world. So just something to think about. This is one reason why that core piece of healing, the self-love piece, is so important. If you would have told me Inva, you're gonna go through some shit with some people and you're not even gonna really be mad at them. And also you're gonna like figure out, oh wow, here's some woundings I have that I need to work on. Here's some ego stuff I gotta deal with. And have it be a learning process instead of horribly traumatic, you know. Don't get me wrong, it started off horribly traumatic. It's been like 8 years of like some nonsense. You know, whereas when I was a kid, like shit was happening to me and I had no, it was like I was being a pinball in a pinball machine. Um, you know, and I'm thankful like I've done enough of the background foundational piece to go, oh, okay, now I can pull it all together, you know, and now I'm okay. Now I feel, oh, man, I don't want to say this because I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like I'm okay regardless what happens. You know, I feel like I'm enough in integrity with myself and I'm doing what I can and, you know, I'm recognizing like I'm a human being, they're a human being. Um, you know, now if you're, I just want to say, like, if you are actively being abused, you do not need to see the person that's doing that to you and sit there and go, oh, but they're a human being. No, that is, you know, yesterday we talked about like we're in different stages. You know, when you're in that active abuse, active trauma, active crisis, active triage phase, like the last thing you need to do is to identify with the person who's doing that to you. You got to identify with you. That's your job. Your job in that moment is like, no, it's my turn. I need to identify with me, my needs, my feelings, you know, and then later on, maybe, you know, if you get there, you don't even need to get there, you know, like the focus really should be like, okay, where am I at, you know, and then don't use that to justify your own bad behavior. So, you know, please do not think that under any circumstances I am telling anybody who's in an active situation of abuse that you need to not be mad at your abuser. No, absolutely. We have our feelings for a reason. You know, I was angry at all of those people at some point, or scared, or terrified, or, you know, and I got good information. Like if you're angry, something's wrong. You got to address something. If you're scared and terrified, like you in danger, girl. Like, you know, get out. It's a horror movie. Get out. Like, don't go investigate the basement. Don't go psychotherapize like the zombie. You know, you can do that later. Later, you can be like, oh, let me think about this and like the factors that led to whatever situation. But like when you were in it, like once you recognize, oh, I'm in danger, like I need to get out, like boo boo. Do not stay. Your processing is for later. In the moment, what you need to do is like move towards getting out. And that's a really hard process. I'm not gonna lie. That took me like 3 years with the one person. Of being able to do that. You know, our feelings, the way we feel about people, our virtues. You know, like like the identities that we build. Like, you know, I'm a loyal person and I'm a loving person and I don't give up and I'm not a quitter and stuff like that. You know, keeps us tied in situations because we are not accepting reality. You know, if I had been able to go in the beginning, oh, this person is more interested in being right. This person is more interested in controlling what I think. This person is more interested in controlling how I feel. This person is more interested in that we prioritize his feelings than ours, you know. And I do want to say he had some really great relationship perspectives. You know, he's got a strong foundation for building, you know, a healthy self in the future. But no matter no matter how much we want to feel like we're good people and oh, we were childhood victims of abuse or whatever it is, if we don't, we don't have those strong boundaries, we don't have enough self-love, if we can't walk away because we're so afraid of being alone, we'll just keep trying to change somebody else, uselessly and futilely, because, people change people, but we can't change people. All we can do is change ourselves. But again, one thing I always want to emphasize is that this is all a process. I get really aggravated when I see people talking about like, you have to be this way. It's like, no. This is where you're going. This is the goal. This is what you want to like focus on and move toward. but healing is a process. Moving forward is a process. Nobody that I know can make a decision and make it, they do like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to decide to feel this way anymore. Boom, done. I've changed my emotions. Like, I don't think that's what they're for, one. And two, I don't think that's realistic. So, if we're in it and we feel a certain way, you know, yeah, like honor and acknowledge where you're at, at that point, your focus is to make sure you're not hurting other people and you're getting out. Unfortunately, a lot of victims of abuse were like paranoid that we're like, is it us? So am I the one? Am I the abusive one? Because the longer we stay in an unsafe situation, the harder we try, the worse it gets. And then we find that's why they call it crazy making, because then you find you're like, well, I don't even recognize myself anymore. Like, I don't recognize what I'm doing. Me in particular, the past year I was like, I was that person, up at 2 a.m., like just typing messages because I just like I had so many feelings to get out, and like I'm not saying they weren't valid, and not saying that I wasn't right, but like uh, mm, I was feeling very reactive, very triggered, very anxious, very upset, very wounded, and I wouldn't walk away from the person that was hurting me. I didn't want to. I just wanted them to stop hurting me, and I didn't want the answer to be that I have to not be with him because I really wanted to. More than anything I've ever wanted anything in my life, I cannot express to you, like, oh my gosh. So, just to like repeat myself, I'm so sorry. So their feelings are more important. They think being right is the most important thing. They use that rightness to justify their actions. They have to control what you think or how you believe. And then because they've done some not great things, image management. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna post it to the subreddit, and then if anyone has any questions, we can like chat about it. I'm gonna go back to my kind of way laid back Sunday. Happy Father's Day, everybody.